Oh no. Is it working? Hold on just a second, everybody. My Twitter has lost authorization to do this, so we are going to try to figure this out real fast before we get started. Welcome in, everybody. I would love to see where everybody's at. I see that Name is back in here, so that's funny. Is it because I wonder if it's because Twitter is I wonder why it's not starting on my Twitter account. Hold on, everybody. I think it's because Twitter has been suffering from a hack. I think that that's what's happening. So we're going to try it one more time. And if it does not work, we will just stick with, yeah, it's not working. All right. Let me try to add it back. Yep. I think it is because Twitter has lost. Twitter is getting hacked right now by some group. So, yep, nope, it's not going to work. All right. Just YouTube today, guys. That's all good. That is all good. Welcome in. Glad to see everybody here today. We have a ton to talk about. We're going to get into that in just a second. So let me go ahead and just post on my Telegram because I can't post actually. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just post my YouTube on my Twitter. All right. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. Twitter's been having some issues today, so got to adjust accordingly. Live now on YouTube because Twitter is broken. All right. Welcome in, everybody. This is episode 139 of Kalibrated with Scott. I am, of course, your host, Scott. I see that we have a good amount of people in here today. It's going to be a little bit smaller because obviously Twitter isn't working. I might continue to try to start it throughout the program, but as far as we go right now, Twitter is down. So welcome everybody in. Obviously, you can tell by the title of today's episode, and if you've been keeping up with any of the news on my Telegram or my Twitter, you can find those links in the description of this YouTube video. What is going on the front lines in Ukraine? Ukrainians are counterattacking throughout the what we would consider probably the normal front line in the east. This includes Toretsk, Kupiansk area, Pokrovsk area as well. The Ukrainians are trying desperately in multiple different areas to achieve some sort of success. There's a lot of gray zone in Toretsk, so there's a lot of Ukrainian talk about what's going on there. There's not a ton of pro-Ukrainian talk about what is going on in Kursk, which is hilarious because that's all that has been talked about over the past couple of weeks and months is this Kursk incursion. Kursk is a bargaining chip, Kursk this, Kursk that. And now as the Kursk pocket is rapidly closing and the Ukrainians are being routed out of said pocket, it is becoming very clear that the narrative has shifted and the word Kursk is now not permitted in pro-Ukrainian circles, as it's no longer important. It doesn't matter. The Ukrainians are getting out. Everything has been accomplished, and now we can focus on the battle being lost in the west. Or in the east of the country. Apologies. So that's primarily what we're going to talk about today. We have a few other map changes, but as I was talking about, the Ukrainians have been counterattacking across the front. And when, if you ask me, I can't tell you why they're doing this, probably just for PR reasons, but it doesn't help their position at all. They are suffering from an acute manpower shortage, and this just exacerbates that manpower shortage. So by all means, if you're looking at it from a Russian position, let the Ukrainians attack you, let them have the initiative. It makes your job a lot easier. let the Ukrainians come to you. You don't have to assault Ukrainian positions, right? I don't see why this is happening. The Ukrainians should be consistently consolidating and trying to reduce the front line, not overextend themselves when they really don't have the capabilities to do so. We're also going to talk today about the U.S.'s current outlook on the Ukraine conflict, the direction that the Trump administration appears to be going, and so on and so forth with that sort of stuff. But without further ado, guys, let's get into some map updates. And yeah, hello from Serbia. Let's see. Twitter's working fine here. Yeah, no, my Twitter is now working, but the live stream is not sending itself over to Twitter like it's supposed to. So that's the issue. Yeah, Twitter's messed up. Frankfurt, Germany. Good to see you. Hello from Colorado. Hello from UK. I saw that Name was in here, which is awesome. Good to see you, Name. Name is very upset because I DM'd him. I had a DM conversation with him, and he's like a schizophrenic person to talk to. It's unbelievable. He doesn't listen. He doesn't respond to anything you say. He just makes up like this fantastic stories about all of this other stuff and won't actually interpret what you're talking about. So yes, he is correct. I did block him on both my Telegram and on my Telegram page and personally in Telegram, because it is a waste of time talking to this individual. For anybody who doesn't know, Name had a bet with me that Trump was going to abandon Ukraine, which we were going to talk about today. Has not happened, is not going to happen. And we will, like I said, we're going to talk about it here in just a second. So funny that he's still claiming that he won a bet or something. It's just ridiculous. But yeah. And then here we go, because you can't stand losing. No, you don't understand how human communication works, my friend. You don't understand how to have a conversation, how to find middle ground ever. You are a ridiculous human being, and I'm going to stand by that. Everybody has seen my position here. Everybody knows my position here, and they know exactly what you are. So, all right, have a good day, Name. All right, map updates. Here we go. Let's start it off. We'll start in the south of the country, down here around Velika Novoselka. This is quite an old update, guys. I have not done a live stream for like 8 or 10 days, something like that now, as you've known. Last week was very slow, and then this weekend everything sped up over the last 3 days, and I was not super excited to hop on here and jump the gun with what was going on in the Kursk region. Yesterday we were still trying to figure out if the pipe event was real, the Mario Bros excursion that the Russians went on in the Kursk region, which we will talk about as well. We did not know if that was even real or if it happened. Ukrainian sources were denying it, and then they were claiming that they had destroyed the Russians, and then it turns out that the entire Kursk pocket is collapsing. So we'll get into that. But this is a rather old update, probably about a week. Again, just further advances by the Russians out of Velika Novoselka, nothing overly spectacular. But do remember that Shevchenko is a major objective, as it lies on the high ground, as well as basically everything up to this river right here. This is the direction that the Russians want to take, and they want to cut this highway, basically strangulating this entire area for the AFU along this highway. All right. Moving over, Russian forces have captured the entirety of Konstantinopel, as well as have advanced north of Avdiivka, or Andriivka, sorry. Just small updates here, nothing really overly fantastic. Guys, the Russians really do seem to be holding back now. Not holding back in a sense that they're not, that there's more that they could do. No, they're letting the Ukrainians try to regain the initiative, which I don't. If you're a Russian and you're looking at this conflict, you're not worried about territory. You know that territory is going to come, like a Russian commander. The goal of the objective of the military operation right now is the attrition of Ukrainian forces. If those Ukrainian forces want to leave their defensive positions and attack you, you let your FPVs, your glide bombs, your artillery, your strike drones, as we've seen in the Kursk region, do the work for you. Why, if you don't have to waste men assaulting trenches, don't waste men assaulting trenches. All right. We have a small Ukrainian advance here in the village of Udashny. This is, as I talked about, Pokrovsk is at the max extent of Russian logistics. This area right here is the minimum extent of Ukrainian logistics, right? It's the shortest place for them out of Pokrovsk. This is the area where you are going to see Ukrainian advances if they are going to come. But again, they're going to be very minor and really not overly pragmatic for the Russian position. So Russian forces have been pushed out of Udashny, but remember, Udashny is the very, very extent of Russian logistics out of Seladove. It is the closest area to the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. It is the easiest place for the Ukrainians to remove the Russians from. You're going to see this kind of trend across the front where the Ukrainians are advancing. Here in Toretsk, there have been multiple Ukrainian geolocations in this part of the city, as there is a trench network over here. The Tetikons I have moved into the gray zone, as it does not appear that the Russians control them. This is why the Ukrainians are able to push into the city. But I did not make these Ukrainian gains permanent, as I do not believe they are permanent. I believe that if you watch every video, it is a small Ukrainian assault unit that drives down a road that is in gray zone because the city is rather destroyed completely. The Ukrainians will go into the city, and then they will get hit by FPV drones and artillery, and that is the end of the geolocation. And it always shows Ukrainians dying. So I'm going to leave this temporarily like this. If it becomes consistent, I am going to make these blue areas back under Ukrainian control. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. Okay. Russian forces have completed the capture of Bilohorivka and have advanced the front line to the Luhansk-Donetsk Oblast border area. And that is it for Russian advances outside of the Kursk region. Remember, I had told you that I did not know the specific realities of the ground here in the Kupiansk area. I had said that I did not know if the Russians were still in this part of the city. We had not got a geolocation. It is now reported by multiple sources that the Russians have been pushed sort of back out of the area, up back into the Sinkivka area. I do not know if this front line is exactly, right on where the area of control is. However, this does not really matter anymore, as we can see that the Russians have, created this massive bridgehead across the river. The fact that the Ukrainians are pushing more manpower into this side of the Oskil to force the Russians back out is, again, another overextension of Ukrainian supply and logistics, which will hamper future operations for the Ukrainians and quickly attrit them. So the whole situation just doesn't make a lot of sense from a Ukrainian position. Yes, of course. I missed all of you guys. All right. Moving over to the Kursk region. Okay, guys, so this is where we have a majority of the updates. So first and foremost, we'll just kind of go in order of how these updates occurred. We've had advances by Russian forces. Here we can see this is the Sumy front. This is Russian-controlled territory within Sumy. If you guys remember, orange is the area that the Ukrainians used to control that the Russians have recaptured. Yellow is the new Russian advances in the Kursk region. And then green is Russian advances in the Sumy region, which is represented by this red area here. As you can see, over here, Kharkov is red. The LPR is red. That's what's going on here. Russian forces have advanced into the Sumy region, have captured the village of Novenke, which we had already talked about. But now Russian forces have advanced and have captured the village of Zoravaka in the Sumy region. So this just begins to put pressure on the rear positions here that support Ukrainian logistics into Struzda and into the Kursk pocket. All right. So funny enough, if you guys remember, the Ukrainians had turned off the Russian gas pipeline that runs through the Kursk region into Europe. It runs through Ukraine. This is part of the reason why I think they chose this area to go into, was because of this pipeline. They can control the flow of gas if they wanted to. They ended up not renewing that deal with the Russians, so the gas had been halted. This empty gas pipeline was then used by the Russians to travel nearly 12 kilometers from this area right here. I believe the gas pipeline runs right through this area, although I don't know if it's exactly on the map. The pipeline, the Russians ended up taking it all the way down to this area right here, and this entire Ukrainian defensive area was basically backdoored by the Russians. This is not the first time we have seen the Russians conduct these sort of, I call them Mario Bro operations. We saw the first one in Avdiivka, which completely compromised the Ukrainian defenses of the city. We then saw the second one conducted in New York, Toretsk area, which completely compromised the defense of New York. And now we have seen the third tunneling operation, Mario Bro operation in the Kursk region, which has completely undone the Ukrainian position here. Now, I do believe that the Ukrainians in the Kursk region were basically at a breaking point already. This pipe operation, while successful, while accomplishing what it needed to accomplish, it did not necessarily need to happen for this collapse to occur. I do not believe. However, it did increase the speed tremendously and really messed up the Ukrainian position up here to the north. So as we've seen, the supply lines coming in right here, and right here there was a secondary supply route that ran up this tree line here into Zdruzhda, were littered with armored vehicles and civilian transport logistics vehicles. As you know, this road is covered by artillery, FPV drones constantly. It's just a nightmare getting in and out. I have multiple videos on my Telegram and my Twitter showing this road of life, road of death, whatever you want to call it. Russian forces then advanced out of this area right here. I don't know what you call it, Fransivka, and sort of across the Pisel River, and then advanced very quickly along these tree lines to the Sumy-Russian border, which cut off this supply line, leaving only the one into Zdruzhda, and the entire pocket has basically collapsed because of this. There's no supply coming in and out, no formal rotation, and the Ukrainians are now running. After the pipe operation, Russian forces then linked up in between here in Kubatkin, I believe is how you would pronounce that, met up here. Ukrainians were then surrounded in the villages of Ishkovishki and Pravda and Uzini. We saw surrenders in this village. We also saw a lot of casualties from this village. That basically sums up the entirety of the advances so far. We are getting reports now that the Ukrainians are leaving Zdruzhda. Whether they have been given an order or not is not clear. What I had heard from Ukrainian sources is that communication between headquarters and the Kursk incursion area had been basically completely severed, and that they were blind and without direction. So the 47th Mechanized Brigade made a post about how their guys had been lucky enough to make it out. The 47th Mechanized Brigade, being one of the better brigades, was one of the first brigades to be removed from action to safely pull them out. There are anecdotal reports. Don't take this. You can take this with salt if you want. There are anecdotal reports that the manpower that is directly coming out of Kursk is being put on buses and sent east almost immediately. They're saying they basically walked out. They were dirty. They were put on buses and then they were sent away. So that's the rumors that are at least going around in the Sumy region. We will see how that plays out. But this is going to close any minute now. By tomorrow morning, we will probably see the Russians in the city of Zdruzhda with flags being planted and the rest of the salient being removed. A good, interesting idea to look at is how well Ukrainian defenses on this side of the Sumy border region will hold up, what the manpower accumulation is here to hold this back, because you have a massive Russian grouping that's concentrated around this Kursk region now. And as soon as this breaks, they're going to be looking directly into the Sumy region. Will they enter the Sumy region? I sort of doubt it. I don't think we're going to be seeing any big arrows in this region, but it is going to be the end of the Kursk operation, a removal of the largest and probably singular Ukrainian bargaining chip, although we had talked about how it's not really a bargaining chip. And yeah, just a complete waste of human life, time, and position of negotiation, really. So that's it for the Kursk operation. I said it from the moment they went in, and I've been repeating it for probably 6 or 7 months now, and exactly what I said has come to fruition. So yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Who else thinks the EU is the second Soviet Union? Very well could be. They're experiencing similar issues. After Kursk is cleansed, do you expect the Russians to launch a Sumy offensive or elsewhere? I just kind of answered that. No, I think that the Ukrainians are in a very weird political position right now where they have to prove themselves. They are going to be doing erratic and spontaneous things. I think that the Russians should just sit back and let the Ukrainians run at them and beat their heads against the wall. And then once they've exhausted themselves yet again, then the Russians can do whatever they want. And I do not expect negotiations to work out. We're going to talk about that right now. We're going to get into that. Streets in America are filled with Ukrainian flags and pro-Ukrainian supporters. Big rallies every day. Who's funding them? I don't know. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them on news. I don't know. I don't know if anybody is actually. I don't know, man. I haven't seen anybody really super hyped on Ukraine here in the United States myself personally. That might just be an illusion brought to you by propaganda. Not that these events aren't happening, but they might be completely overhyped. I don't see that anywhere I go. Nobody has any interest in Ukraine here. Nobody cared about Ukraine before the war started. They only knew about Ukraine because the war started, and now they're completely exhausted and tired of it. So that's the normal American position on Ukraine. Especially with after what happened in the White House and how the current administration has really been negatively portraying the Ukrainian government and stuff like that. It's been getting worse and worse. I haven't seen a total defeat for the AFU since Mariupol. Yep, and you're going to see it here. So, is the counteroffensive a distraction for Kursk? Yes, I think that the reason why you're seeing what you're seeing in Toretsk is because they have to take the attention away from this complete and utter disaster. And I can't downplay this, guys. There have been so many casualties. This is so much worse than like Bakhmut was for the Ukrainians, because the Russians are utilizing fiber optic FPV drones. The Ukrainians are much more exposed. And I made a post about this, how the Russian military you're seeing right now, the way they're closing and the way that they're capitalizing on this Kursk situation shows how far they've come as a military unit. They're operating like a true military, and it's quite impressive. You're seeing columns get destroyed. You're seeing heavy strike UAVs operating, or just strike UAVs operating in this region because Ukrainian air defense is so weak. You're seeing very accurate glide bomb strikes on Ukrainian oh my goodness. I just had my brain just totally shut off on Ukrainian positions, but I meant like concentrations. There we go. I knew it started with a C. Ooh, my brain just stopped. Thank you guys for your questions. Those are some good questions so far. Let's see. All right. Gonna head over, and now we're going to talk about some of the articles that are being written about. So there are currently talks about a negotiation, peace talks in Saudi Arabia. I wanted to lay out exactly what this is and what's happening, because there seems to be a lot of confusion. First and foremost, the Russians are not invited. So what you're seeing in Saudi Arabia is the Saudis trying to delegate between the Ukrainian side and the American side. They're trying to find a path forward to peace. We've seen this time and time again between the U.S. and Ukraine. the U.S. is really pushing for this ceasefire because the ceasefire is exactly what the United States wants. The United States wants time for Europe to militarize, whether that is buying U.S. equipment and stuff, because with the energy situation in Europe, I don't think they're really going to be able to do this by themselves. It's going to buy time for Europe. It's going to buy time for Ukraine, and it's going to buy time for the U.S. while they're pivoting to China, restrain the Russians, and continue forward. If they could somehow pull the Russians away from the Chinese, I think that would also be fantastic for them. They would go through with that most definitely. However, that position seems much more fantastic than getting some temporary ceasefire or stop to the conflict. The Russians have very clearly said that a ceasefire is not going to work for them, but things happen, things change. So that's sort of what we're talking about right now. But over to the BBC, where we have Rubio says Ukraine's partial ceasefire plan had promise ahead of talks in Saudi Arabia. So first and foremost, just looking at the title, Rubio says Ukraine partial ceasefire plan. Partial ceasefire. Talk to me about what a partial ceasefire is. I don't know what that means. This is the English language is this incredible thing that news outlets like to twist and manipulate to make it seem like something's happening, even when nothing's happening. And really, it's a very you have to pay very close attention. Ukraine partial ceasefire. What is a partial ceasefire? The Russians have already said that no ceasefire is going to be applicable. Is a partial ceasefire the close the skies initiative that they had talked about recently, which is just give us more shit and protect us? Not going to work, right? That's not a path forward. I don't know what Rubio is talking about. I think that the U.S. wants to make it look like they're trying very, very hard to get a settlement in Ukraine. And at the end, they won't be able to because, as I've said multiple times, the Ukrainian, the Russian, and the American position is all the exact same behind the scenes, but on the surface, the Europeans need the war to continue. Zelensky needs the war to continue, and the U.S. needs to pivot. And this is, I'll bring it up one last time. This is what Name and I talked about. If you see him spamming in the chat, it's annoying, but whatever. He has the right to talk as much as he wants. We had a bet that President Donald Trump he said that President Donald Trump would just abandon Ukraine, up and abandon them. I said, no, that is not going to happen. And as we're seeing play out in front of our eyes, and I can show you multiple references to this, the Trump administration is not pulling away from Ukraine. They have not canceled Starlink. Elon Musk basically came out and said if they canceled Starlink, the Ukrainian lines collapse. They're not going to do that. And there is no alternative. That's probably slightly braggadocious on his part, but the principle is there. We are not going to actually do anything that is going to compromise the Ukrainian position because the Ukrainian position is our position. And this is something, it's all show and tell, guys. You just have to read through it. And then he said that it has promise ahead of talks in Saudi Arabia. Talks in Saudi Arabia that Russia is not invited to. So again, you have the United States negotiating with Ukraine about a peace plan that has to involve Russia, and Russia is not invited. Good luck working that out. I'm going to read a little bit of this, though. America's top diplomat said that he sees promise in Ukraine's proposal for a partial ceasefire to end the 3-year war with Russia ahead of talks in Saudi Arabia between U.S. and Ukrainian officials. I'm not saying that alone is enough, but it's the kind of concession you would need to see in order to end the conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Monday. Kiev is expected to propose an aerial and naval truce with Russia during the negotiations on Tuesday, Ukrainian official told AFP. This is exactly what I just said, right? What are you going to do? Shut the skies? So you want to take away Russia's only major advantage that they possess, which is their deep strike capabilities, their ability to launch missiles anywhere, anytime in Ukraine. They're talking about stopping the strikes on the energy infrastructure. Hey, stop fighting the war, except we'll keep fighting the war on the smaller scale where the land truce hasn't happened, but the air and sea truce has. Right? Like that's all that can be said about that. That doesn't make any sense. But this is what they're going to try to do. And this is exactly what I told you guys. None of this is going to work. Negotiations are not going to happen. The war is going to continue. This is how it's going to go. Russia has previously rejected the idea of a temporary ceasefire, saying it was an attempt to buy time and prevent a Ukrainian military collapse. Why are we even writing these fucking articles? Why are we even talking about this? What is this theater? It makes no sense. And you guys, I'm going to just keep repeating it again and again because I am right. And I'm going to keep being right because they are telling you what they're going to do. I'm not smart. I don't have any ability to see the future. I just listen to what they say. I listen to what the Russians say. And from those two positions, you can figure out exactly what's going on. Pete Hegseth said the division of labor for Europe is something that needs to happen immediately. That means the militarization of Europe. That means probably the nuclearization of Germany. That means, in terms of them achieving nuclear weapons. That it means a bunch of different things. It means social programs in Europe are going to take a major hit. They are going to blame the Trump administration for that. Europe is going to become united against the Americans who are their perceived threat and forcing them to do exactly what the Americans just talked about and what they've been talking about for years. It's theater. It's just a play that they're putting on in front of you, and you need to see through it if you want to understand what's going on. I'm going to actually take us over to my Twitter real quick. And I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that is happening in regards to what I'm talking about right here. So I'm going to go down. Here is a tweet from Marco Rubio. Here we go. After a 6-week review, we are officially canceling 83% of the programs at USAID. The 5,200 contracts that are now canceled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve and in some cases even harmed the core national interests of the United States. In consultation with Congress, we intend for the remaining 18% of programs we are keeping, approximately 1,000, to now be administered more effectively under the State Department. Thank you, Doge, and our hardworking staff who worked very long hours to achieve the overdue historic reform. As I had said previously, guys, USAID is not going anywhere. They're not getting rid of it. US soft power has to remain, right? This is what I talked about. Trump is not changing anything. He's just doing what the US has to do. This is what I talked about. Presidents don't do anything new or different. They continue down the path of what the U.S. strategic position is. They have to maintain certain realities about the U.S. hegemony if they want to maintain what we have here, right? They're going to be ousted out of presidency if they retreat globally and we become a lesser version of ourselves, right? This is something that it's hegemony or nothing, right? This is the mentality that America has. Doge was not some revolutionary reformist entity. No, Doge is the sharpener that you're using to sharpen the blade of the United States, right? The new administration comes in, they have a constituency that they have to play to. You're looking at this completely bloated, probably not very effective USAID soft power program that has really become morose and bogged down with bureaucracy. You cut it by 80%. And then what's going to happen is all of that money that has been freed up is going to be put back into USAID more effectively, more efficiently, and more focused probably in the Southern Pacific rather than, the nonsense in the Middle East, the transgenderism stuff, whatever, all of that garbage. It's going to be replaced with different garbage from the other side. It's just what's going to happen. U.S. soft power is not going anywhere. All right. If Krasnov didn't cut supplies, cold Ukraine have prevented the Kursk collapse. No, probably not. How likely do you think all 6,000 to 10,000? I don't think there's 6,000 to 10,000 AFU soldiers in that pocket. I think that there's 2,000 to 3,000 max. I think you guys sometimes don't understand the density of front lines. There might be 6,000 total troops supporting the pocket, but there's not 6,000 troops trapped in that pocket. They rotate out. There's guys doing logistics. There's a bunch of different stuff going on. There's no way you have 6,000 people, especially now. There's no way in that small. I mean, it's only like 200 square kilometers. You do not need 6,000 people in there. Let's see. If the AFU withdraws from Zduzda, how high do you think the casualties? They're already monstrous. They're already monumental. The casualties have been disgusting, like unacceptable for months now. This is not something new. It's just now you're seeing the Ukrainians running unorganized away instead of running in and getting slaughtered on the front line. That's the only difference. Haven't seen you in recommendations for months. What the probably because my videos haven't been super consistent. Sorry guys, I've been super busy, work, starting a new whole business. It's been a lot of work and I've been very busy and stuff like that. So I do appreciate you guys showing up when I do these live streams. I'm sorry that they haven't been as consistent. Colonel Douglas McGregor and many more like you keep talking about Ukraine collapsing since what? But it never happened. Okay. First off, when you talk about the first 2 months of the war, you can just disregard everything that everybody said. General Mark Milley thought that Ukraine was going to collapse in 72 hours, right? This is something that he said openly. That's literally his quote. Also, Colonel Douglas McGregor has been wrong consistently throughout the conflict. Same with people like Scott Ritter. Same with people like any of the bombastic people who are constantly putting their face in front of a camera and telling you what's going to happen. Absolutely. 400 million Ukrainian casualties, this, that, or the other. These people are just talking heads like any other talking heads. These are not real analysts. They have a very removed idea of what's going on the front line. And they are pushing a narrative very, very intensely. I don't feel like I'm pushing a narrative super intensely. I'm very much bought in on what I'm talking about. I've seen the evidence for what I'm talking about. So I don't think I'm making claims that are not supported by direct evidence, direct quotes. I think I always say things that are quite accurate. And if you look at my profile, you can see when I started talking about collapse. I actually have a whole thread series about the collapse. And a collapse is not something that happens immediately. I know your mentality, I know a lot of people's mentality is very immature when it comes to terms like collapse, like defeat, like withdraw, stuff like that. You think of it as a Hollywood event. You want to see something like what happened in Syria. That's what you guys are calling a collapse. No, a collapse is when the objectives that the opposing military are trying to achieve are now failing, and you are being successful at an exponential rate compared to your opponent. So from about, we could say Avdiivka, I think from basically Avdiivka, we have seen a consistent weakening of the Ukrainian armed forces. We saw it around Kharkov, we saw it around Ugledar, we saw it around Velika Novosilka. We're talking about places that had not seen movement in years wrapped up like that. Ugledar, Velika Novosilka, Kharkov, Andriivka, everything out to Pokrovsk, Seladove. That all happened within like the last 8 months. If you guys weren't paying attention, it's more movement than we've seen in Ukraine in years. The entire Kursk pocket is coming to a close. The Ukrainians are talking about peace because they have no ability to fight anymore. Are they maintaining their positions on the front line? Yes. Is it healthy to do so? Absolutely fucking not. Do not be fooled by the lack of movement in terms of the overall health of the AFU. These two things are not directly correlated. If you force all of your manpower to the front line, you can hold that front line for a long time. But what happens when that front line breaks is it breaks very quickly and very harshly, right? So in the future, in the coming months, when you see something happen here in the spring, when the ground hardens and you see the Russians take a bunch more territory because Ukraine is very weak, and you come back in here and you say, oh, well, the Russians have only moved 2,000 kilometers in the past 2 months and not 1,000, or whatever. You're just going to keep coming back and saying the same things because you refuse to acknowledge the realities on the ground. There you go. Aren't you guys tired of being wrong? Yeah, I was definitely wrong about Bakhmut, wasn't I? When I said that the Ukrainians were being treated horribly and they were stuck on a road of life, everybody was telling me I was wrong. What ended up happening? 2 months later, the Ukrainian counteroffensive completely failed, and one of the biggest complaints was that they had attrited themselves too hard in Bakhmut to actually succeed. I also said that the counteroffensive was going to fail because the Russians were prepared for the Ukrainians this time. Everybody said that I was wrong. Look what happened. Then what happened after that? Avdiivka collapsed. I think I specifically, after Avdiivka, said, guys, watch the Pokrovsk front. The Russians are going to push here hard. Southern Donetsk, Southern Donetsk, Southern Donetsk. You can go back and watch my videos where I made predictions about this. It's all cataloged. I mean, I have a whole YouTube page. You can go check it out. I really hate people telling me that I'm wrong when I've been consistently right for like 2 years now. It's unbelievable. When Kursk is completely liberated, could you remove those yellow and orange areas from the map? Confusing, thanks. I'm going to keep the orange area, but it will be all orange. It's not going to be yellow and stuff. It's going to look a lot simpler literally directly after this live stream ends. I'm sorry if you already covered this, but is Russia giving up Toretsk for Kursk? No, hell no. No, guys, what's happening in Toretsk is you're seeing groups of 5 to 10 Ukrainians be suicide ran into a building and then they get blown up. That's all that's happening in Toretsk. Like, I don't know where this, I don't know why you guys trust the Ukrainian like propaganda. That's the only place I've seen these people talking about the situation in Toretsk being bad. I see proper Ukrainian sources saying that the situation is being completely overblown. They're having some successes, but it's not nearly what is being talked about. The Russians aren't entrapped. They're not losing the city, nothing of the sort. The Ukrainians are just trying to do something somewhere, and this is the only area they're actually seeing any success. That's it. I love it, though. I love it that after 3 years, everybody still just buys into this crap again and again and again. Not that it's your fault. I mean, if you don't pay attention to this stuff consistently, you're not going to know every little pattern and every little tell. But I just deal with it all day, and I just see it again and again. Military summary keeps yapping about Torres. Yeah, he's been yapping about stuff forever. I don't watch any other YouTubers really, so I don't know what exactly they're talking about. But he has said crazy things throughout the entire war and has been wrong throughout the entire war. So my position is just don't pay attention to people who are being bombastic or crazy for clicks or likes, and I think that's what he does sometimes. The killings in Syria, man, it made my blood boil. Yep. But hey, at least Assad is gone, right? That's what I talked about. The devil, you might not like Assad, and Assad might be a dictator, whatever, but he was stability. And a place like that needs stability, and now that stability is gone. And what ends up happening? Civilians just start getting genocided, basically massacred. Yep. Sad seeing AMK on the Toretsk Hopium. No, I've talked to him in private. I don't think he's really hopium on that. I think he's just covering it to the best of his abilities. I'm very, my position is I'm watching these Ukrainians just walk in and get blown up in these houses again and again and again. So he is looking at it more from these are the geolocations. This is how the map looks. I'm looking at it from a more realistic position, I would say, of are they actually holding any of this? Are they using it to their advantage, or are they just being seen there before they die? And that's kind of, I think, more of what's happening. How bad do you think morale loss will be for Ukraine following the Kursk rout? What will the lingering aftermath be? I don't know, man. I don't know how the Ukrainians are still fighting. I don't know how they're have any morale. They are being denied rotation. I just don't know if they're so fearful of like death as the alternative. So they might as well chance, the Russians killing them instead of knowing that your Ukrainian commanders are going to kill them. I don't know, but it's got to be miserable knowing you're just going to be marched into a death campaign no matter where you go. How long do you see the war going? I've always said 2026. Weeb Union and History Legends are good. Yes, they are. They're all good. They all have their aspects that you can benefit from, guys. It's just personally, when I do this all day, I want to maintain my own stream of thought. I don't watch the Duran a ton. I don't watch Brian a ton. I don't watch a lot of other people, even people that I like and agree with, because I want my own opinions to be shaped by what I'm what I'm seeing in the input that I'm taking in, not somebody else's input. I like Scott, but military summary is way more on point than this channel. Okay, and that's your opinion. Cool. I've watched military summary make wild claims about stuff all the time. Every time there's an event, he's like the most clickbait YouTuber in this information space. So you might think he's accurate, whatever. I think your bias is being confirmed by this individual, and that's why you think that. Scott changing the definition of collapse. Okay, hold on. All right, here we go. In a military context, collapse can refer to the defeat of a side in a war, the breakdown of a unit, or the loss of control of a state, right? So you're talking about what's happening in Ukraine right now. Is Ukraine winning the war? Has the war worsened for Ukraine in the last 6 months, let's say? Let's just put that timetable on it. Do you think that the Russians are exponentially increasing the speed at which they are doing things? Do you think the Russians are exponentially increasing the speed at which they're treating the Ukrainians? I happen to think so. And I see that as a collapse. When the Ukrainians are not defending positions that they should be defending very well and losing cities like Velika Novoselka and Kharkove and Drivka back to back to back to back to back, I see that as a collapse. And you know who else I listen to is the fucking Ukrainians, who are saying that they're experiencing these issues and that they are in collapses. It's not my opinion. I love it. I love being the voice, though, because you guys attacking me is just you attacking open source information that's available to all of you. I love it. I love it so much. Keep doing it, guys. Keep doing it. Let's keep it going. I love it. What makes fiber optic drones better than others? They can't be jammed. They can fly into buildings. They don't have any horizon issues, where they're losing signal over the horizon. And they go as far as the cable will allow them to go. So if you have 30 kilometers of fiber optic cables, you can send a drone into an enemy headquarters, basically, in a different city if you wanted to, if the battery could get you there. Seen some sad videos on Telegram that the media never shows. Ukrainians are getting blasted. Meanwhile, normies still think that Russia is weak and incapable. Yep. And it's going to be like that. And and if you're in here watching this, you can just go into chat and see how many people just refuse to just accept basic realities. And then they will, criticize me or whatever, which is fine. I know exactly how correct I've been throughout, especially like the last 2 years. I've been just basically spot on about almost every event that has occurred. And I don't take ridiculous positions. And that's why I'm correct, is because I take the very most realistic basic position, and I don't exaggerate, and I don't manipulate reality. I just tell you guys how it is. And if you don't like it, I think that says more about you. You are super sensitive to criticism. Kursk flag, you remember? Yeah, there's a reason why I haven't deleted it, because it's not going to be wrong. At the end of this, I bet you that flag is back up in Kursk, right? I'm not upset by criticism. You can criticize me all you want. Like I said, the last 2 years, that tweet was in the first year of the war when things were very hectic and crazy. And I honestly do regret that tweet. It was a stupid tweet. I shouldn't have even tweeted it. I don't know why I tweeted it. I'm not even like a super like pro-Russian individual. So tweeting that didn't really make sense. It's probably one of the worst tweets I've ever put out. And yet I haven't deleted it for a very specific reason. And it is going to pay off so tremendously. So again, if you want to talk about what I have been referencing the last 2 years, basically Bakhmut, the counteroffensive, Avdiivka, Kharkov incursion, the Kursk incursion, Ugledar, Velika Novosilka, the entire southern Donetsk offensive, we can talk about that. You know, the areas I've been correct on time and time again. If you want to go back to the first days of the war and you want to talk about how, you know, people thought Ukraine was going to collapse or, you know, Russians weren't going to leave Kherson, we can talk about that. You're not making a very good argument for yourself, honestly. And no, I'm not sensitive to criticism. I'm actually laughing at the criticism because the criticism is not of me. It's of reality. It's just of reality. That's all it is. You guys criticize me all day. I've been criticized for 3 years. You think I'm sensitive to criticism? I would have blocked and shut down my account if that was the case. I have Jimmy Jam, Jim Bob in here saying the stupidest garbage of all time. I've had NAFO up my ass for 3 years. Are you kidding me? I could give a shit about your criticism, your opinion. And to be honest, I don't even know who you are. You're a faceless person in my chat. I appreciate you being in here. I love it, but it seems like you're more contrarian and aggravating. You're trying to like instigate than actually be, you know, what would it be like? Curious. You're not asking curious questions. You're more, you're doing your thing, which is fine. Go ahead. I don't care. You're also paying me, so that's funny. But at the end of the day, you're not really criticizing me. And that's the truth of the situation. You're criticizing the reality on the ground. And if you want to criticize that, it's fine. But everybody in here with 2 brain cells to rub together can just tell you that you're wrong. Name is the guy standing at the top of the hole in the ground. And you're telling him to put the lotion in my basket. Question: will Russia invade Sumy after they clear out Kursk? It's a possibility, but I would say no. I don't think so. I think the Ukrainians have pretty good defenses in that area. Some are even saying that there is a threat that Russia might try to advance towards Kiev. What is your stance on that? I do think that there is a large Russian contingent in the Kursk region, but I do think that the Ukrainians have built up defenses and have basically prepared for this so that the Russians won't be able to break out into the Sumy region. I would not count on it. I think you could see something maybe like the Kharkov region, around Vovchansk, where you have the Russians applying pressure, creating a new front line, forcing Ukrainians to stay there and defend that region. But I don't think you're going to see the Russians like attempting to push into Sumy or anything like that, like the city. What happens with cable when the fiber optic detonates? It's all over the place. It's like spider webs. You can I've seen videos of soldiers going out and like lifting up after a FPV goes like back and forth scanning a tree line. There's just like six like different fiber optic cables going back and forth. It's like fishing line everywhere. Are we going to finally see a full-scale mobilization of 18 to 24-year-olds instead of semi-pseudo mobilization that we're seeing right now? No idea. I wouldn't doubt it, especially if there's no ceasefire. Probably, definitely. My reaction to his comment about being sensitive, saying that I'm not sensitive, and then laughing at the fact that what he's denying is just the basic realities and literally denying what Ukrainians say. This is a funny thing about the people who disagree with me, is they never want to cite the actual Ukrainians that are talking about the issues that they're having on the front line. They'd rather quote people like David or some random garbage NAFO that is being told by proper pro-Ukrainians that they're retarded. That doesn't matter. You'd rather listen to them because they confirm your bias than actually just relaxing and seeing what's happening. You guys can criticize me all you want. Again, your opinions are meaningless to me. I'm of the opinion that probably 80% of the people on the planet are retarded and just actually stupid and are not in competition. So I love all of you. I'm glad you're in here, like I said, but your criticism, I couldn't give a shit about it. I've seen how right I've been. I continue to be right. My tweets, I mean, you can go through my Twitter. It's just all there. I'm consistently accurate. And if I wasn't, you would have endless tweets that you could throw in my face. You can throw a couple of tweets from the beginning of a war. I mean, I might have been wrong here and there. I've tweeted like 50 some thousand times. But, you know, if they were there, you'd have them. You'd be showing them. You don't have them. So that's what it is. I've been criticized for 3 years. I've been criticized my entire life, in fact. Your criticism does not bother me. Scott, don't worry about criticism. It's obvious when other people pretending to know when they're actually, yeah. And you know, again, they can criticize. The criticism is actually nice. I like the criticism because criticism forces me to challenge my own position. This is something that I think a lot of people are very afraid of, being criticized or having debate or conversation about what's happening, because I can defend my position. I can present sources, evidence, everything. I can fully defend where I'm coming from. Whereas you're just talking in my chat and you can't defend anything that you're talking about. You're saying that the Russians are, you know, collapsing in Toretsk or some bullshit like that. No, you're just hopium because Kursk is collapsing and nothing is going good for Ukraine. That's the reality of the situation. So criticize me away and I will use that criticism to earn myself more revenue on YouTube. That's what I'll do with it. Let's go. I challenge all of my critics to get in here and start asking questions, tough questions. I'll just sit here all day. Lashem, my Hebrew brother, what did you train today? Lashem, I don't know, what is that, L'chaim? L'chaim? That's funny that I said Lashem. I trained arms. Trained some arms today. I had a good arm day too. I'm getting really big. I'm like 246 right now. I jumped up the other day. I was doing something this weekend and I was jumping a lot. And man, I could just feel it. When you just start putting on weight, it just hurts the body. It's good though. It's what I want. Are you regarded? Yes, I'm highly regarded. So regarded, in fact, that I was put into a special class full of regardeds. Question, elections in Ukraine. Psych. Scott, violin, lying face. Good argument. Good argument, Jim. Why did you call him immature? Because he challenged you and you still tried to twist the narrative? No, I didn't call him immature. Did I call him immature? I don't know. I think I said that it was not very good analysis that he was doing and he was just using his bias to confirm his position, where I said I can provide sources and stuff, you know, as I've been doing for like a year and a half on this live stream. And everybody, all of you are still in here watching me for some reason. Tee. Bald people have no souls. This very well could be true. I'm not one to really believe in the human soul in general, so I would tend to agree with you, but I don't know. I feel like most bald people are like dads. People who support Russia in this war are clearly not that intelligent. Okay. Clearly. Says the person cheering on the Kursk incursion. Keck. You're right, though. Most people are uninformed or too biased to formulate a realistic opinion. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it's always going to be. I spend all day sitting here looking at this and just having all the information at my fingertips, right? It's what I do regularly. So I am overexposed to a lot of the information, and I can see a lot of the patterns that people miss. And yeah, I'm not emotionally invested in this. I could care less if one side loses or another. I just base most of my predictions off mathematics and realism. Okay. Let's see. First time here. Dude sounds like a fucking well, you're more than welcome to leave. People are so weird, dude. Scott, 12th question. How was Hanukkah? I love this, you guys. Hanukkah, isn't that in like November or some shit? Wasn't that forever ago? Isn't it Ramadan right now? I know that's not Jewish, but what's your weight now? 246. Challenging your critics. No, I blocked you because you don't make sense when you talk. You know how you talk in caps right here and you just talk to yourself and argue with yourself over and over again? It was the exact same thing you were doing in DMs. I gave you a chance. I tried to talk to you in my chat, and then I tried to talk to you in private to try to actually, like I said, talk to you about what was going on. But you're an actual crazy person, and that's okay. That's fine. I won't ban you from here because I want you to see how you're wrong and how you will continue to be wrong. You said that Trump was going to abandon Ukraine. I'm waiting for it patiently. I'm still waiting. Still hasn't happened. And yet you say you're right. Goofy boy. Calibrated with Scott. So Russian flag back in Kherson City. That is the minimum for negotiations. You know what Rubio is talking about, the difficult decisions that Ukraine might have to make is retreating from those annexed regions. Question. Do you ever think you will spend more time answering real questions instead of engaging with trolls? Ask real questions and I'm hit them up. I've answered every real question. Let's see. Russia is winning. Are you going down there to die? F clown boys, much more intelligent than you. English is hard, first and foremost. Formulating sentences is tough. I know. Try proofreading your comment before you send it. All right. What do you mean would I go down there and die? First off, go down where? I live in America. Ukraine is not down. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? F clown boys, much more intelligent than you. Probably. Probably. It's just so funny, man. I love it. It's been the same thing for 3 years. I've listened to the same thing for 3 years. People thought David was right. Have you seen what's going on with David recently at all? The people thought David was better at this than I was. All of your opinions are just completely unimportant to me. That's hilarious. Can I have your thoughts on military summary Kursk map? I haven't looked at it. I don't regularly look at other people's maps either. How long can the war grind on with European support? I think it really depends on whether the Europeans are able to militarize the way they want to, and if there's a ceasefire. If there's a ceasefire in Ukraine, I think the Europeans are going to have a lot of time to set themselves up, set Ukraine up, and then, I think it'll restart. This is why I truly hope the Russian position is to not negotiate right now until they get exactly what they want. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that you will see Ukraine at least go until 2026 with European support. It'll get worse and worse and worse and worse over the 2025 year. But I think that's a realistic idea. Can we please have 1 minute of this Ukrainian Jim, or is it Steve? What were his most egregious inaccuracies? I know Jim. Are you talking about the guy in our chat? They don't ever make predictions. They that's not what they do. They don't have a position. Their position is just to agitate and aggravate based on the narrative being pushed. They don't think for themselves. It's not what they do. And then they're going to be in here like, I do think for myself. No, you don't, because you're actually sitting in my chat giving me attention and giving me, helping me with my algorithm and everything because you disagree with me. You know what I do with people I disagree with? Ignore them because they're wrong. If I was so wrong, you wouldn't be in here. The fact that I'm right again and again and again is why you're in here, because you want that chance to prove me wrong. That's what you're in here to do. Just remember, You're in here wasting your time with me. It's not the other way around. I love it, man. I love it so much. All right, I'm going to go down to the bottom of chat now. I'm sorry if I skipped some of your questions, guys. I just was getting kind of behind. Who do you think is morally right in this war? I don't think either side is morally right. I don't think it's a moral question. I think both sides, I don't necessarily see Ukraine as a side in this. I see Ukraine as the proxy. Just like South Vietnam wasn't really the side in the war. It was, the Russians supporting the North Vietnamese and the Chinese a little bit supporting the North Vietnamese, and the Americans fighting and supporting the South Vietnamese. Same with the ANA. I don't really think that the country involved and being used is necessarily the side is like a side in the war. And that's why I don't think they really need a spot at the negotiating table, because I don't think that they have any say. I think that the government was implemented by the United States, so it's our vassal and our proxy, and we use them how we wish. What side do I think is morally right in this war? First off, I don't think war is a very moral thing. So to say somebody's morally right in the invasion or conquest of a nation is probably not a position I would take ever. But I would say that one side couped the government in Ukraine. One side fed arms into the country. One side has continued to feed arms since the war expanded. And that one side is doing that from the opposite side of the ocean, whereas Russia is dealing with this issue on their border. I would ask you, would you think that the U.S. would be morally reprehensible, or would it be morally reprehensible for the U.S. to do a special military operation in Mexico if Mexico was threatening U.S. national security and was creating an existential threat to U.S. Hegemony and U.S. interests? I would say probably not. I think the U.S. would have the legitimate right to go into Mexico and do what they needed to do if it was threatening their, if it was an existential threat to their future. That is exactly what Ukraine joining NATO was for Russia. Whether you disagree with that or not is not really up to you. You do not get to decide what the interests of another nation are, what their existential threat, what an existential threat to another nation is. That is for them to decide. They went about it. They have paid the consequences for that action. It is what it is. It's war. I think trying to find the good and evil in something that is just objectively evil is not a very good thing to do. Wars are not supposed to happen. There's a reason why we have a guttural reaction to people dying. It's not supposed to happen in front of us, right? And when it does, we try to find the light in it. We try to make it Star Wars, the light in the dark, when really it's just a bunch of very, very greedy, powerful people who want to maintain power and control. That's all it is. You think we will see a time when we are actually friendly with Russia? This isn't the same Russian NATO wants them. Wait, this isn't the same Russia NATO wants them to be. I think you might see the U.S. Pretend to be very friendly with Russia, but the U.S. is not going to be friendly with anybody who, contests their hegemony. It's just not how we operate. It's not how any empire has operated throughout human history. So you might see fake pretend. And again, this is what I talked about with Trump, right? The whole Trump is abandoning Ukraine. Trump wants to fix ties with Putin and all this. He just renewed sanctions on Russia for a year. They're talking right now about here, I actually have an article. I forgot to read this article. I have two articles that I forgot to read. So here, we'll go over to this one. U.S. just about ready to lift Ukraine intel freeze, Trump says ahead of Saudi Arabia meet. So Zelensky's going to go kiss Trump's ass, say what Trump wants to hear, and the U.S. is just going to continue providing strike information to Ukraine to hit targets inside of Russia. Okay. So you're not really trying to achieve peace, are you? You're trying to get a mineral deal signed and then, shift to China and have Europe take over. Right? It's what they're trying to do, guys. So if this was real, they would not undo the intel until peace was actually achieved. There's no Russia in this meeting. How are you going to unfreeze intel just because Ukraine says they're going to do something? Maybe it's just so ridiculous. All right, so here we go. London. The U.S. is, quote, just about ready to lift the freeze on intel sharing from Ukraine, President Donald Trump said on Sunday, as American and Ukrainian negotiators prepare for bilateral talks in Saudi Arabia intended to move toward a peace deal and end Russia's 3-year-old invasion. How are you going to achieve that without Russia? What? Well, we just about have, Trump told reporters on Air Force One when asked if he would consider resuming intelligence sharing. We want to do anything we can to get Ukraine serious about getting something done, he added. Trump's administration had embarked on the dramatic pivot away from the ironclad backing of Ukraine practiced by former President Joe Biden. Trump has falsely blamed Ukraine for starting the war. Here we go. That's London talking right there. Ukraine didn't start the war. It's actually true. It is false. Ukraine didn't start the war. Russia technically started the war. But who put everything in motion to have the war start? I would say the U.S. The U.S. started the coup. The U.S. pumped arms into the country for years during the Civil War. And then, basically called Russia's bluff that they wouldn't intervene after Zelensky was talking about acquiring nuclear weapons and joining NATO. And so, it's like FAFO. Right? You won't do it. You won't do it. We're going to do whatever we want in a country right on your border. You won't do it. You won't do it. Oh my God, he did it. Oh my God, he really did it. Who could have seen this coming? Holy shit. That's what's going on. Okay. So, the U.S. would not be unfreezing intel just because Ukraine is going, they're just trying to get the mineral deal signed. And then the U.S. can walk away and say, look, we got something for nothing. Okay. And one more article I wanted to show you guys, and then I'm going to wrap this up from the New York Times. Russia forces depleted and stalling on Eastern Front, Ukraine says. So here's the narrative switch, right? Why aren't we talking about Kursk? The area where you're experiencing an operational fucking disaster? No, we can't talk about that. We got to talk about how the Russians are now stalling on the other area that you were just losing piecemeal 2 weeks ago, right? Now you've stabilized. So now this is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about the absolute rout occurring in the north where we had been primarily focused for 6 months. Now we're going to focus on Toretsk. Russian forces depleted and stalling on Eastern Front, Ukraine says. The front line inside Ukraine has become more static. Ukrainian soldiers say, even as Russia regains ground in its own Kursk region. Wow. Thanks, New York Times, for actually acknowledging it. Ukrainian forces have stalled the Russian offensive in the eastern Donetsk region in recent months and have started to win back small patches of land. Very small, like a kilometer here and there small, like something that the Ukrainians would have laughed at the Russians at a year ago when we would have, made a map about it. If somebody would have made a map about a Russian advance, they would have said, it's only one little village or whatever like that, So, but when it's Ukraine doing it, it's fantastic. The Russians are collapsing. Russia still holds the initiative and conducts dozens of assaults across the Eastern Front every day. No shit. The soldiers and analysts say, but after more than 15 months on the offensive, Russian brigades have been depleted and Moscow is struggling to replace destroyed equipment. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's not happening. Again, another fake thing. And if you choose to believe it, you're just leaning into the bias. We haven't seen a shortage of Russian artillery fire. We haven't seen a shortage of Russian FPV drones. We haven't seen a shortage of Russian Iskander missiles. We haven't seen a shortage of even Russian military vehicles, like armored vehicles. We haven't seen a shortage. So I don't know what they're talking about. Offering limited opportunities that Ukrainian forces are trying to exploit. No, they're trying to exploit anything they can because they're trying to pull attention from what you just mentioned, the Kursk disaster. I don't even know what else to call it. The Russian offensive effort in Donetsk has stalled in recent months due to poor weather, exhaustion among Russian forces, and effective Ukrainian adaptation to the way Russian troops have been fighting, said Michael Kaufman, a senior fellow. Michael Kaufman, classic guy in here that has also been wrong. You guys say that I've been wrong. You guys should go look at some of what the European and American generals have tweeted and said over the last 3 years. I mean, you got 5-star generals like, or maybe he's not 5-star, but he's a multiple star general. What's his name? Ben Hodges. Wasn't he saying Crimea Beach Party? Wasn't he saying that the Russians were just going to run away from the front? Wasn't that what he was talking about? That didn't happen, did it? Nope, it did not. And he's a general in a military. Let's just leave it there. So yeah, it's just more ridiculousness. While it's too early to say that the front has stabilized, yeah, no shit, because the front hasn't stabilized. The Ukrainians are losing hundreds of kilometers of territory. It's just not inside of Ukraine, so you don't care about it, even though they're dying for it in the same droves as before. He said the situation has improved and Ukraine finds innovative ways to compensate for a shortage of troops. Compensate for a shortage of troops. Again, listen to what they say. They're talking about it. Ukraine has a shortage of troops. That's why they're collapsing, right? It's because they have an acute manpower shortage. That's why they're losing cities without fights the way that they should. That's why they're getting routed out of Kursk. That's why they are losing across the board. I love it. I love that I'm still arguing about this after a year. It's just unbelievable. All right, guys, an hour and 16 minutes. Thank you so much for being in here. I expect that with the weather improving, the Russian front line is actually going to start moving. That is actually the one true part of that article, is that low cloud cover has prevented a lot of reconnaissance drones from flying, which has made any assault operations very difficult. The Ukrainians are taking advantage of this right now. FPVs are still up, so you can assault, but you don't have eyes; they have eyes, sort of deal. So I expect that the Russian front line in the east will start moving here in the coming days, and Kursk will probably close here in the coming days. We are getting reports that the Ukrainians are retreating from Zdruzhda. So please, if you have not, like and subscribe this video. Thank you, guys. It was an hour and 16 of me babbling. I appreciate you all being in here. I appreciate all of your questions. I appreciate all of your criticisms. Everybody who criticized me, come back next week. I will be more correct next week, and you can come back and tell me how I'm wrong and give me more attention and more, engagement. I appreciate you all so much. The criticism hurts my soul so deeply, and I don't know if I'll ever recover. Take care, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.